select from the Barrie Coats, Mark Scheifele.
Western Hockey League, Prince Albert Raiders, Joshua Morrison.
My microphone being muted.
All right. Great start.
Everybody, it's time to go home. If that's how it's going to go, that's the way it's going. Jamie Thomas alongside Paul Edmonds and Mitchell Clinton as we look back at the 2026 NHL Draft. Before this draft started, gentlemen, there was a big conversation about the future location of Connor Hellebuck, and now as quickly has changed to how everyone is excited about a kid named Viggo Björck amongst the other players the Winnipeg Jets drafted over the past couple of days. Let's take a look first, though, at the Jets' first-round pick. First time in a decade they picked in the top 10, and at number 8, Viggo Björck came to the Winnipeg Jets, and man, it's been a while since I've seen Kevin Cheveldayoff and Mark Hillier both this excited about a player. Paul, let's start with you about this kid from Stockholm.
Well, you're absolutely right. General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff was beaming last night when he addressed the media to talk about Viggo Björck after the first round was done. And Director of Amateur Scouting, Mark Hillier, was the same today as well. Very effusive in their positivity with this player. And the fact that I think a lot of people are feeling that the Winnipeg Jets got a steal at 8 as things unfolded. The first 3 picks yesterday went as planned. After that, it sort of went awry, if you will, in terms of where everybody was slotted. And this player fell right onto the lap of the Winnipeg Jets, and they got a real good player. The interesting part for me is that, and we've talked about this, if Viggo Björck was 6'1" or 6'2", he might have rivaled Gavin McKenna for first overall. That's how highly sought after this player was. And he has all of the tools in the toolbox. Very cerebral, can skate, can shoot. Players will want to play with him is something that I read along the lines as well. A right-handed shot as a centerman. So if you think that he's going to come in and assume the second line center role, and right now we're being hinted toward the fact that he's going to get a chance to compete for that spot because he's not really committed anywhere else. Now, Mark Hillier did say that they have to get him signed, of course. I think that's just a formality of the business, and he's going to come in and they're going to look at him being the 2C that Winnipeg has coveted for a long time. The one guy that's going to be probably the most excited about the opportunity to play with him as a right-handed shot has to be Cole Perfetti, because he's going to get a lot of pucks with a right-handed shot centerman playing the left wing side if it all goes to plan for the Jets. But this is a guy that when you looked at what they needed to select, Winnipeg not only wanted the best player available, which is always the mantra that they have, but they wanted the best player available that could slot in as soon as possible. And I say that they got their man.
Yeah, I'm touching on a little bit what you just said, Paul, about the opportunity that Vigo's going to get to be 2C next year. That took me off guard. And Mark Hillier said he will be given that opportunity. He also added that I don't make those types of decisions. But I think that's even more exciting heading into training camp, Mitch, thinking of this opportunity that this young man's going to have starting in September.
Yeah, and I think you imagine, especially over the last few years, how veteran Winnipeg has been, especially up front. The opportunity for those young players were harder to come by just because of the NHL experience that was there, right? And then as we got late into the regular season last year, you started to see a little bit more, whether it was Isaac Rosen coming over from Buffalo. Brad Lambert, of course, gets his kind of second shot of last season with a good run. Braden Yeager got in there as well. And you're starting to see some of the opportunity there. And so, yeah, I was kind of similar to you, JT, when I heard Mark Hillier talk about, the opportunity there. But I mean, Viggo Björck, all he's done has been able to give evidence to everybody that he can play at this level. And what stood out to me about what Mark Hillier said, and I think Kevin Cheveldayoff touched on this as well as numerous scouts that we've seen over the last few days, especially the fact that he went to the Worlds and he wasn't just a guy.
Yes.
He was, close to leading in ice time. He was on the power play, not just the second power play or anything like that, the top power play unit, and was a guy that Sweden really went to. in that World's tournament. So, and of course, we've all seen kind of the clip of Sidney Crosby talking about Viggo Björck after the game and kind of the poise that he played with, the smarts that he played with. And there's a lot of things that jump off the page when you start talking about Viggo Björck, but I echo what you were talking about, Paul. I mean, the opportunity for say someone like Cole Perfetti, maybe, they get him signed, maybe they get him into preseason. We start to see what that kind of looks like. And I'm sure the coaching staff has kind of taken a look at and has looked at a lot of video of Viggo Björck and wondering, maybe where we can slot him here or we can slot him there. Lots of decisions to make, but they're exciting decisions to be able to make, especially once that pick was final yesterday.
And keep in mind, too, Bjork started at the World Junior Hockey Championship. Sweden won there. But on top of that, he became the youngest player ever to play for Sweden at the World Hockey Championships. And on top of that, he centered their top line. He was on their top power play and also killed penalties. So this kid has done a lot at such a young age. Very busy day for the Winnipeg Jets on the second day of the NHL Draft. We were going to go through this quickly, but third round comes around, and Drew McIntyre, of course, who's one of the top scouts, goaltender scouts for the Winnipeg Jets organization. So excited. Here's another guy that's excited about a pick. Samuel Hrenek comes over to the Winnipeg Jets. He played with Fargo in the United States Hockey League. He even scored a goal last year. But for Winnipeg to get a goaltender in the third round, add to the depth, very important, Paulie.
Yeah, this was interesting for me. Not the pick, but I was thinking, I wonder if the Jets are going to take a goalie this year in the draft. And not only did they take a goalie, but they ended up taking two, and they took one in the third round. So pretty high. I think that, only about 3 hours south of Winnipeg, you have this player in Samuel Hrenek, who played for the Fargo Force in the USHL. But it wasn't just what he did there. He played on 7 teams last year, a lot of international hockey with his home country in Slovakia. And in total, he played 52 games. So he got a lot of reps. So the Jets and their scouting department were able to see Samuel Hrenek at different levels in different environments. And from what they saw with all of the numbers, they liked what they saw. So big goaltender at 6'3", as you mentioned, scored a goal. So some secondary scoring for the Winnipeg Jets if he ever makes it, I guess, to the NHL. But they talked about it, and Mark Hillier was succinct in saying that they wanted some more organizational depth, certainly in the goaltending position. And I think they got a real good one here. And he is super stoked to be a Winnipeg Jet. Was talking during the media availability about wearing the jersey and dreaming about playing here. So I think a little bit of that comes from the proximity of playing his junior hockey only 3 hours south in North Dakota. But the Winnipeg Jets did not take a chance on this guy. I think he's going to be legitimate, and he played a lot of games, so he's certainly getting the opportunity to play, to build his craft. But now we'll see where he slots in and where he ends up. But for the Winnipeg Jets, they sprinkled the outfield pretty well here when it came to their 7 picks. They got 2 centers, they got 2 goalies, they got a forward, they got a couple of defensemen. So they really did a real good job of making sure that they filled their funnel with all of the positions available, certainly on a hockey depth chart.
And John Parsons, the other goaltender, he was drafted the 7th round. He was a goaltender from Providence. Paulie referring to that. Round number 4, Zach Wooten, 6'2", 205, played for Green Bay, is going to Wisconsin next season. Said he wanted to shoot the puck more in conversations earlier in the year when he played with Green Bay. He ended up scoring 35 goals. But, of course, Director of Amateur Scouting, Mark Hillier, saying a late bloomer, Mitch.
Yeah, one of 2 20-year-olds that the Winnipeg Jets took this year. And, obviously you hear 20 years old, you're like, why did he get passed over so much? But I think it was interesting to hear him kind of talk about that, right? Like, and kind of his message for players that maybe got passed over in their 18 or 19-year-old year this year in the NHL draft, just to, A, find ways to improve, but B, use it as motivation. And that's exactly what he did. He kind of always felt that he was a good skater, is kind of what he said. And then he spent the summer, really training and kind of with that a little bit of more focus, more determination, if you will. Sometimes it's just a matter of you get to an age where you're like, I want to take my game to another level. And he found a way to do that. He talked about he grew 2 to 3 inches over the last couple of years. He's gained 30 pounds of muscle, which is a lot over the course of that stretch. But it really seems like at the age of 20, he's able to carry that well. He said his skating has gone from good to even better than that. And it's kind of just trickled into a lot of his games. So, and he's going to have obviously his teammate from Green Bay as part of this draft class. in Landon Hafley as well, who the Winnipeg Jets took in the 6th round. So, I mean, lots of good things to expect from Zach Wooten, and another guy that, being a Minnesota product is going to fit right in with the Winnipeg Jets, who seem to have like those, they have their Canadian kids for sure. They've got their Minnesota products. And right now, Sweden seems to be in vogue the last few years for the Winnipeg Jets organization.
Yeah. Landon Hafley, of course, great from the admin department of social media with the Shifley to Hafley will be a great call for Paul Edmonds and Mitchell Clinton down the road here. So that's on Twitter right now. Landon Hafley went in the 6th round. He's 6 feet tall, 179. From Fairbanks, Alaska, speedy two-way forward, and chose to play in the USHL, even though he had an opportunity to play in the NCAA after 2 seasons with the National Team Development Program. So we'll go to round 5, Paulie, and you talked about the fact they get 2 defensemen, one, a little big, but the next one a little bigger than that. We're going to get to him in a second. But Alex Tyfair from Quebec of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, 6 feet tall, 165, 17 points in 28 games, but as Mark Hillier pointed out, had an Achilles issue last year, but they really like the way this kid skates.
This is an interesting pick for me, and the reason that I like this pick is when we look at defensemen, the first thing that you do when you're looking at the past performance sheet or their biography is, okay, how many points did he put up? Specifically, maybe goals, but more so for defensemen, assists. Like, is he a playmaker? We are always thinking that every defenseman that gets taken needs to be an offensive defenseman. This guy is really not that. He is a defensive defenseman. Yeah. And I applaud the Winnipeg Jets for taking this pick because they like what they see on the blue line. And I've talked about this before with Mitchell on the air and JT with you, and too many times I think when we are selecting stars in hockey games, it's just based on the score sheet and what's done there. But there's so many good defensive defensemen that just play so steady that win you hockey games and do those little things to protect your own zone, retrieve pucks, get in front of the net, those types of things. This is what Tilfer will probably do for the Winnipeg Jets, or is projected and forecasted to do for the Winnipeg Jets. He's playing in the QMJHL. His English is excellent. I was really surprised by that. He was playing in Quebec. Not super large. He's 6 feet tall. That's what they have him listed as, but almost 180 pounds, but mobile and physical. So if you're looking for a defensive defenseman, the Jets got one certainly in the 5th round, and a left shot at that. So a guy that I think is, if we're going to make a comparison, maybe not as big, but will play similar to what Dylan Sandberg provides the Jets and has for the last couple of years.
Okay, so all of us have called games at various levels, and the common concern we have in this business of ours is the numbers in the back of a jersey, if you can read them from far away, and then names themselves. We've got a mouthful of a name coming from the 7th round, a kid from that played for the Edmonton Oil Kings, first player to be drafted with Samoan defense, Samoa roots. Is Noah Ta'amu from the Edmonton Oil Kings, 6'2", 228 pounds. And I contacted the play-by-play voice of the Oil Kings about if this kid can skate. He can, but you got to love the fact that there's a big kid back there with size that can skate. Paulie.
Interesting, Mark Hillier, in talking about the accolades of Noah Ta'amu, was the fact that he brought up doesn't mind dropping the gloves, doesn't mind fighting, old school type of player. So you're going to get, his dad played in the National Football League. So, you have to have some sort of aggression via lineage if you're going to play in the NFL or play football by and large. So I think that Winnipeg, they get him in the 7th round. They had 2 picks in the 7th round. They take another defenseman. There's a little bit more time for him to grow, understandably. And we talked about this, so I'm hoping I'm not stealing somebody's information, but his mom is Canadian. So that's why he finds himself born in Kansas City, I believe, raised more in the Los Angeles or Southern California area, ends up in Edmonton in the Western Hockey League. Prior to that was in the Okanagan. So he's come up to Canada, really exposing himself and getting the exposure to Western Canadian hockey, which I feel will make him a better player. But he's a big size defenseman who, again, will probably provide that defensive skill set, but also he'll play with a mean streak on that back end as he's projected at some point to make the Winnipeg Jets. But a good pick at 7th overall. The interesting part for me in this draft, gentlemen, today was, and I've never seen this before, we may never see it again, I watch the Western Hockey League draft a lot when they go through the players every year and in May, and you'll see when teams are right filled with their protected lists of, I believe it's 50, they'll pass on players or they'll pass in rounds, especially in the late rounds, because they don't have any more room to put a player on their list. This year in the second round, we saw a forfeit in the draft, and that was the Vegas Golden Knights for the indiscretions they had in the playoffs about not making, their coaches and players really available for media purposes. But I've never seen that before. I had to bring it up today, but a forfeit in the second round, so Vegas does not get their pick. But they were busy too with moving Pavel Dorofeyev as well. But I don't know that we'll ever see a forfeit in the second round of the National Hockey League draft ever again.
You got to love the fact that John Tortorella is not even part of the Vegas Golden Knights anymore, and
yeah,
they're paying the price for him not doing what he was supposed to do after a playoff game. Mitch, it's unfair, but anytime we see a big defenseman that throws the gloves, that can move bodies, people automatically go, "Oh my gosh, Dustin Byfuglien." Not fair at all, and that was brought up today in the media chat. But I know we're not saying Noah is that, but it does get those juices flowing when you think about Dustin Byfuglien again.
For sure. And I mean, yeah, you're not going to put that comparison onto a player at this point. But I mean, here's the thing, like his game has kind of continued to improve the more and more that he's played. And I think his role with Edmonton increased this year. He could very well increase next year, especially because of the fact the Oil Kings had such depth on their blue line this season. So maybe a little bit more of an increased role for him. We'll see. But I mean, you can think of the amount of ways that you could use a guy that's 6'2", 220, 228. I mean, in front of your net, you want that place to be a miserable place to go for your opposition, whether it's, they don't want to get there for rebounds if they're available, or it makes them harder to be that screen or deflect or whatever it may be. If he's making it difficult to be there, then it gets harder and harder for your opposition to get there. How many times have we heard the Winnipeg Jets talk about it, and when they're in the offensive zone, you got to get to the front of that. You got to find a way. Well, now teams will have to find a way against someone of that size and someone that, isn't afraid to, like Paul referenced, like Mark Hillier referenced, drop the gloves, play a little bit old school. Like he's going to be putting some sticks in some lower backs, I'm pretty sure, in front of the Winnipeg Jets net. So be interesting to kind of watch him as he continues to develop. But yeah, like a great spot to take someone like that. And the fact that there's some history involved with the Samoan descent and being the first, that's also really cool. And I mean, just something that I'm really looking forward to seeing at Winnipeg Jets development camp, which, I mean, hey, gets started in like a couple of days.
That's where I was going to go next, of course, as we wrap things up here. I remember a couple of years ago how excited everybody was. The development camp was back. Maybe it's 3 years ago now. But now I think with these players coming in, I think you're going to have a lot of people inside Hockey for All Center trying to see what the Jets have done and who they have here. But Paulie, I mean, inside this draft and in years past, who are you looking forward to seeing next week in action at Hockey for All Center?
Well, it has to be Viggo Björck.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the number one pick, and it sort of goes without saying. But I think what you want to do is, Mark Hillier was, again, succinct today in saying that every level that he played at, U20, the SHL, and World Championships, that this guy ended up being the top line center. And as you guys have expounded on, playing in crucial roles in penalty kill and power play. So he stood out, right? 26 minutes in the gold medal game for Sweden at the World Juniors. So let's see when he gets in amongst all the other draft picks and the players that have been invited to camp for the Winnipeg Jets. Some part of the organization, some will just be invites to decamp. Let's see where he stands out. Like, is he going to jump off the page at you? I expect that he will. And what's interesting is Mark Hillier said that it didn't happen right away, but as the game rolled along, you started to see him take it over. And that's the kind of player that you want to see when you go to decamp. Just for the record, for people that are listening, on Monday, decamp does start, but it's only media availability for people like ourselves. But on Tuesday, starting at 9:30 in the morning with the goaltenders at Hockey for All Center, and then the players at 10 a.m. will hit the ice. So if you're interested in getting a firsthand view at Viggo Björck or anybody else that the Winnipeg Jets did select, because they'll all be there, and I think they're all looking forward to it, and then other players, it will begin it will begin on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. So get there early, because I expect it's going to be a packed house, certainly with school now out, and people interested in this hockey team and their first overall pick.
Mitch, last words to you, my friend.
Yeah, just I would echo what Paul said about development camp. And the things that always stand out to me is you can read about what these players are all about. And let's keep in mind, it's going to be July, really, when this camp is on. So they're kind of in the middle of training and or coming off the end of a long season. So maybe everything's not at peak, but this is kind of your first chance as a fan to see these prospects live, right? Like, I remember when Colby Barlow was selected, everybody talked about his shot because of the production that he had in terms of goals in the Ontario Hockey League when he was selected. Well, you go to development camp, and I remember seeing his shot for the first time, kind of the first one that he got off clean. That wasn't necessarily a one-timer, it's just a wrist shot. And
Yeah,
I remember going off the bar and down, I just went, okay,
yeah.
That's the shot everybody's talking about. And then I remember when Kevin He was selected and went to development camp, and you heard about this competitiveness, this dog on the bone mentality, the never quit, the motor never stopping. And that was evident, you know what I mean? Like, and that's in a camp in July. And, you know, you go and watch him at Young Stars when it was in Penticton and he was playing there, and it's the same thing. He's all over the puck. So this is kind of the opportunity to see all these words that you read on paper or you're watching online, however you take in your hockey. This is kind of the opportunity to be able to see some of that. Development camp, not always the most flashy in terms of practices, but there are those moments that you do see what these players are all about, and it's really exciting to see.
Should mention just one more thing just on that. You're going to see the drills go along as we get into the skates on Tuesday, but Friday will be the inter squad games. So if you're looking to mark something this week and maybe slide out of work a little early or play some hooky, it might be good to get down and watch the inter squad game or the scrimmage game on Friday. That might be where we really see these players in that environment as opposed to just doing drills. But I'm looking forward to seeing Viggo Björck and everybody else, frankly, from this draft class, which I think, and again, it was a robust draft class, and I think the Winnipeg Jets did a real good job of getting the players that they wanted, filling some holes organizationally, and certainly getting just a absolute blue chipper in Viggo Björck with their 8th pick, first overall.
Exciting times ahead for the Winnipeg Jets as the summer rolls on here in the Manitoba capital. On behalf of Paul Edmonds, Mitchell Clinton, and producer Zach, I'm Jamie Thomas. Thanks so much for watching the 2026 NHL Draft recap here. We'll see you guys real soon.